from Pearson to all the teachers that have joined us from across Africa and the Republic of Maldives. Just a few housekeeping rules before we start. Please ensure you are on mute, and please feel free to post any questions in the chat function for the Q&A slot at the end of the session. We look forward to hosting you, and we hope you enjoy and find value in the webinar today. At the moment, with the disruptive year we've had, it is natural to be feeling some worry and anxiety. And in the webinar, we will explore how mindfulness can help you reduce the stress and anxiety and become more resilient, productive, and creative individuals. I'd like to introduce our speaker for today, Pearson's mindfulness lead, Ashley Lodge, and his co-teacher, Lisa Wren, who will be presenting the mindfulness session. But before we start our session, I would like to extend a special welcome to Dr. Abdullah Rashid, Minister of State for Education from the Republic of Maldives. Dr. Rashid, I will now hand over to you to say a few words before we begin the session.
Thank you so much, Camilla. Good evening, Mr. Ashley and other members in the panel. Also, all the teachers who joined from Africa and Maldives. Very good evening. I can say this is a very important session for the teachers, for everyone in this difficult time. As we know, COVID situation just emerged so suddenly. When it emerged, nobody is ready. No country is ready. As this happened, schools and universities around the world forced to close down. Same situation experienced even in the Maldives. From mid-March, all our schools and universities and colleges were closed. Even right now, schools in the capital, Malé, are closed. However, the rest of the country, schools are reopened. During this time, our teachers also experienced a lot of stress because, as I said before, this happened so suddenly as schools closed down, but still they have to provide education. Learning should continue. But teachers were not really trained or prepared to teach online or to teach through distance education. This really gives a lot of stress for the teachers, since this is something that they are not trained and that they are not ready. Even students were not ready. They also don't have much experience. So these things really aggravated the situation. More than this, the internet connectivity is really problematic. So this really made the situation worse. Teachers, they struggle to provide education. They need to access the material. They need to provide lessons. All depends through online platforms that is dependent on the speed of internet, accessibility of internet. So because of that, teachers get more stress. But I can say we really appreciate the hard work of the teachers. From the first day onwards, somehow our teachers are providing education through distance mode by using Google Classroom, by using Zoom, on Google Meet, through different ways and different means. And Ministry of Education really helps teachers to relieve the stress. Concerned officials from Ministry of Education, they provided training on, or they gave psychosocial support, how to manage stress, how to maintain mental well-being. Some such sessions have been conducted. And also, we have started Google certified training, and around 2,000 teachers from Maldives, they have already completed level 1 training. I'm sure this session really will be helpful everyone who have already joined, not only the teachers from Maldives or from Africa, everyone. I went through some of your materials. Mindfulness is really important for anyone, especially this difficult time. I can say some sessions Ministry of Education has conducted for our teachers are not enough. Ashley Lodge's session and his colleague with this session really made all of us to learn more about how to practice mindfulness and how to enhance our mental well-being and socio and economic status. By getting this information, I'm sure in the Maldives, we have a very good environment. As you know, Maldives is famous for its white sandy beach. So if our teachers or anybody go to white sandy beach and do the practice of mindfulness or mediation or the concentration, all the positive things, our teachers have opportunity to relieve their stress. I'm not going to talk about mindfulness and all those things since we have experts here to share all those. Before conclusion, I just want to thank Pearson for organizing this very useful webinar for the right time on the right topic. Once again, it's really a great pleasure to say a few words before starting the session. Congratulations and thank you to the teachers who have already joined. And I'm sure that this will be a great help for you, and you also can share your experience in the webinar to your other colleagues. Once again, thank you, Pearson, for organizing the event and also inviting me to say a few words. And thank you so much, and good luck, everyone. Wish you all a very happy and safe day. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if we're all ready, we're going to now go into our session. So hopefully you should be able to see my screen. Is that appearing okay for everyone? Good. Yeah. So thank you very much, Dr. Abdullah, for your kind words and your introduction there. So we have till the end of the hour, so we've got just over 45 minutes now left, them at the right time. So a big warm welcome. I'm Ashley Lodge, and I'm going to introduce Lisa in a moment. We call this the oxygen mask approach. I imagine many of you have taken take flights or might take flights regularly, and you know that when you get onto an aeroplane, one of the first things before you take off is you go through the safety briefing. And they always say that in the event of losing cabin pressure, oxygen mask will drop down, and put your own mask on first before you help out anyone else around you, like children, like other people. And this is true of mindfulness. This course is for you. It's your oxygen mask. This is time for you. Many of you work in educational settings as teachers, and you're there giving yourself constantly to your pupils and to other people. But this next 45 minutes is for you and for your own mental health and well-being, because as we know, these have been difficult times. And if we can use practices like mindfulness to help us, we can then better help other people. So this time is for your mental health and well-being, because you're very much in the front line of helping all those students that you work with. So what we're going to cover, Lisa and I will very quickly tell you a bit about ourselves. We'll tell you what mindfulness is, because we think many people have different definitions, so we want to have one definition. We'll talk about the psychology and the neuroscience that underpins what we do and how it can help with stressful and anxious situations. We're going to do a mindfulness practice together. You'll hear me use the word practice or meditation. We use them interchangeably. Then we're going to run a Q&A. Okay, so this is myself and Lisa. A bit about me. I am a senior product manager. I look after mental health and well-being for UK schools, but I also have a global remit because I look after the mindfulness program for Pearson globally. I'm just going to talk to you a bit about my mindfulness journey here. This isn't my curriculum vitae, don't worry about that. My journey to mindfulness started 7 years ago. I did the 8-week mindfulness course at the Oxford Mindfulness Centre. I'm based here in the UK in Oxford, and the Mindfulness Centre is just down the road from me here. And I've been practicing it ever since. When I say practicing it, I mean living out the values and doing the daily practices or meditations that are part of it. I started running mindfulness course pilots for my colleagues in Pearson, and eventually then trained up as a mindfulness teacher in 2016. And I've been running the whole of Pearson UK's mindfulness program since 2017, so for 3 years now. And I'm also a coach and part of Pearson's Wellbeing group. And now hopefully Lisa's microphone is working now. Is that okay, Lisa?
Thanks, Ashley. Yeah, so my name's Lisa. I work in Pearson as a rights director in the global product business unit, and I've also been practicing mindfulness for a long time, since around 2011. Did the same 8-week course as Ashley at the Oxford Mindfulness Centre, and then trained as a mindfulness teacher in 2017. And I've really worked alongside Ashley, supporting him in all his wonderful efforts to bring mindfulness to as many people as possible. My academic background, I've got a BSc in psychology with neuroscience, which I essentially did because I wanted to find out the science behind mindfulness. So that was a fantastic experience, and now I'm participating in studying on a master's for health psychology. So that's also involving some studies on mindfulness as well. And I also run some psych ed courses for Pearson employees, mainly focused on managing stress. So that's me.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Lisa. Okay, so we're just going to now talk a little bit about, gone on too fast. So the definition that we like to use is that of Jon Kabat-Zinn, who very much, if you like, is the founder of mindfulness in the West, of taking the mindfulness program and making it and popularizing it as we have today. And he says very much it is paying attention in a particular way. And there are 3 bits to this: on purpose, in the present moment, and non-judgmentally. So let's just explore those 3 constituent bits. On purpose, that we are clear about what we are doing. What is our intention? Our intention in this moment is to come with an open mind, to learn about mindfulness, and to see if we can use it for our mental health and well-being. So that's our purpose in this particular moment, which takes me on to the second constituent bit. It's about living and being in the present moment. The past is gone, the future is yet to come. The only moment we can fully be in is the present moment. And finally, non-judgmentally. We as a species have survived all these millions of years because we've had to make constant split, second by second judgments on all the information coming to us to see whether it might be a threat or not. That's been brilliant. But sometimes when we're constantly like that, it can start to spin out stories and worries and concerns that might not be true. So mindfulness asks us to step back and to approach everything as non-judgmentally as possible, because it helps us keep that sense of calm and balance. It's important to say what mindfulness isn't, because a lot of people confuse it with some of the things listed here. It isn't a relaxation method, although that's a nice additional benefit. When we do the practice later, many of you will probably feel calm and relaxed, but that's a side effect. It's not the goal of mindfulness. The goal of mindfulness is to keep bringing our mind back, to be fully present and fully aware of what's going on. It's not about emptying the mind. There are various states of meditation out there that are about that, but that's not what mindfulness is. Mindfulness, in a way, is a better organizing of the mind, a better calming to the mind to be focused on one thing at one time. It's not about achieving a state of bliss. Again, there may be some spiritual traditions that are connected with that, but the mindfulness that we're talking about here today is very much one based in neuroscience and psychology. Nor is it a panacea, a quick fix, like a medication you can take to cure all ills. It takes time and effort. And nor, finally, is it a replacement for counselling or therapy. Sometimes when people encounter very difficult things, they can then do counselling and therapy first, and then after that, they can look to see that they might want to do some mindfulness to help them with their behaviours. So the form of mindfulness that Lisa and I practice, and the form of mindfulness that we've been teaching in Pearson over the last 3 years, is called MBCT, Mindfulness-Based Cognitive Therapy. And if any of you are interested and want to find out more, the book, if you like, the curriculum that we use is that called Mindfulness: Finding Peace in a Frantic World. And it was written, one of the 2 authors, Mark Williams, was the emeritus professor of psychology and mindfulness here at the University of Oxford, just down the road from me here. MBCT is fully grounded in neuroscience and psychology, has been through many rigorous studies. Mark Williams was part of a trio of psychologists who are really interested to see how they could help people with recurrent depression. And they had looked and seen that cognitive behavioural therapy was going to a certain extent and helping people, but there was still a reasonable amount of people that were relapsing. For people with relapsing depression, they wanted to see if they could take on board some of the elements of mindfulness that came out of certain Eastern spiritual traditions and use that in a more clinical setting to see if some of those practices could help people relapse less from their depression. And after many rigorous trials, eventually, here in the UK, NICE, who's our government body who license pharmaceuticals, have agreed that MBCT, mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, is just as effective for dealing with recurrent depression, that's 3 episodes or more, as Prozac-style drugs. And that was a landmark study when that happened. So what are the impacts that mindfulness is having here in Pearson? So as I said, 700 people have been through our 6-week program now. We teach a 6-week version of the MBCT program, and these are the average kind of results we're seeing. A drop in anxiety of around 45%, a drop in perceived stress of just around 20%, and an increase in focus and attention of above and around 25%. And these are results that we have seen time and time again across the various cohorts we've taught. And this is people's self-reported data. We get them to fill in psych forms before and after so that we can see the positive impact that it's having. And so we have a very clear business case and imperative as to how it is helping people, reducing stress and anxiety and increasing focus and attention. So I'm going to hand over to Lisa now, as this is her field of expertise, and just talk very, very briefly, if you can, Lisa, I think we've got about a minute, just about the brain and how mindfulness can help rewire the brain.
Yes, we don't have time to go into the detail on the neuropsychology of mindfulness, but in very simple terms, when we experience fight or flight, that response, which is stress, and it's either because we're thinking about something that's worrying us, or we maybe actually experience something that's perceived as a threat, the part of the brain that's triggered is the sympathetic nervous system. So that's the evolutionary older brain. We feel frightened, we feel anxious, and all the associated physiological symptoms that go with that response. It's a very powerful survival response. Once a threat has passed, the parasympathetic nervous system ramps up. That's the part of the brain that's responsible for ease. What's in mindfulness, and Ashley's going to run a practice for us later, the part of the brain that's responsible for fear and anxiety becomes less active, and the part that's responsible for calm, it becomes more active. And over time, if we practice mindfulness regularly, those effects will increase and become more stable, and those parts of the brain responsible for calm and ease and will become more connected, and increased connectivity in the brain means more efficiency and a better effect. And the limbic brain, the sympathetic nervous system, will start to be less quickly triggered at times of anxiety. So it's a really positive effect. It's neuroplasticity, which we don't have time to go into, but it's a very, very powerful effect. I've whizzed through it. That's a minute.
Thank you, Lisa. Yeah, I mean, we presented a very simplified overview, but we wanted to talk through just so you can understand the science that underpins it. And what we're noticing is that people are able, they've started doing studies where people are put on the fMRI, functional magnetic resonancing imagery, before and after they do courses of mindfulness and meditation. And what you can see is that normally for stressed people, there's more activity here around the amygdala, as Linda was saying, as Lisa was saying. And then afterwards, there tends to be more activity in the calmer bit of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, and less activity in the bit of the brain associated with the fight or flight, the more stressed part of the bit of the brain responsible for the stress response. So we're starting to see that, and we're starting to believe that correlation is probably what's happening, that we're rewiring the brain, the neuroplasticity, as Lisa alluded to. And it's a bit like, and I use this example with my students, it's a bit like going to the gym. When my students come to the class and I explain about neuroplasticity, it's a bit like if you go to the gym, here are my weights that I dusted down. When gyms were closed here during the lockdown in the UK, I had to dust down my dumbbells because I wanted to keep sure that I could keep some vague some musculature going. And so I'd take my weights and I'd lift them to help build muscle. In order to do that, I'd be lifting them, and tearing some muscle fiber would build the muscle. And we understand that that's a pretty good analogy for how mindfulness is working. When we do the daily practices, and we'll talk about them in a moment, we start to rewire the brain. We're building, if you like, more mental muscle here in the prefrontal cortex to start direct activity to that calmer, wise bit of the brain, away from those very automated responses flight or fight that's helped us survive. So I hope that's a good analogy for you there. And as Lisa said, this whole concept is called neuroplasticity, that actually the brain can be rewired by following programs of training, such as mindfulness. We can get the brain to work in better, more efficient, wiser, calmer, and less stressful ways. And this practice here talks about the very things in the prefrontal cortex. So that is attention, learning and memory, especially good for all of us that work in education, emotional regulation. Managing our emotions during these difficult times is really, really important. And all of those are seen to change in studies they've run on people doing mindfulness courses. So what makes up mindfulness then? So there are the psychological principles, which we're going to talk about shortly, and obviously the neuroscience too. Then there are formal practices, meditations. We have a set amount of meditations that we do, and we do different meditations for different weeks in the course. And we're going to give you an example of just a very simple, basic one today to give you a feel of the kind of practices we do here. And then we do everyday mindfulness. And we're going to give you some really good examples of ways that you can be mindful every day. And we call those more informal practices too. So it's important to say that mindfulness just isn't doing the formal practice, the meditations, but it's also living and breathing it and doing it in all the simple everyday things we do. When we understand all of them, the psychological education, when we understand and we do the practice, and when we apply it in everyday situations, then those three things make us mindful. And people that are more mindful have better self-awareness, are better able to self-manage, and are happier, calmer, and more focused individuals. So the key part of the psychology underpinning it is about these two modes that we exist in, that our minds can exist in: doing mode and being mode. And doing mode, first of all, very much does what it says on the tin. It's about our brain being structured and moving things around in order for us to get and do things. The only trouble with that is very often in doing mode of mind, it's very goal orientated, it's very action orientated, but sometimes it might not think of the calmest, wisest ways of doing them. So mindfulness gives us an invitation to enter a different mode of mind, the being mode. And there are a set of behaviors, or set of characteristics, if you like, of doing mode and being mode. And what we are doing over a course of mindfulness, whether it be a 4, 6, or an 8-week program in mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, is we are trying to learn and understand how we can move from those more automatic doing mode behaviors into being mode. And each week of the course, we look at those paired behaviors and see if we can start to move from one to the other. We look at automatic pilot to conscious choice. We look at how very often we analyze, but when we analyze our emotional lives, that might not help. So we move to sensing, and so on and so forth. And in a moment, I'm going to talk us through all of those different behaviors and give you some examples of how we can do that. And so it's not that in mindfulness, we're saying that the doing mode behaviors are problematic. They're all good and valued behaviors and ways of approaching things. It's just that they might not always be the right way, especially when it comes to dealing with more emotional difficulties or other things that we might not be able to deal with as a normal kind of work-based problem, like solving a spreadsheet or something like that. So let's now unpick some of those and show you examples how in everyday life we can start to move from those doing mode of behaviors to those calmer, wiser being mode of behaviors. Very often we exist in autopilot. Our brains are wired in such a way that things are automated so that we can get and do them quickly. That's good. But the problem is sometimes we might have automatic thoughts that occur too, which might go straight to stress, especially during times of worry and concern like now. Our brains can default and go straight to that automatic response. There's a lot of stress and worry out in the world, and therefore we can get panic. So here's an example. This was earlier in the year when I first put this together. We looked at how we can be in nature. So to ground ourselves in the present moment, for me, it was going out into the fields every day near me to look and to be in nature and to really enjoy that and to anchor myself in the present moment. Also, when I made my morning coffee, it was to be in that moment and really take time to make my coffee and to savor it, rather than just being on autopilot, making it and gulping it down and actually not being in that moment and enjoying it. So it's coming back and being fully present in each of those moments. Engaging all of the senses. And by doing that, we can start to move away from analysing to sensing. Very often in our lives, we use analysing to help us resolving problems. Now, if you've got a particular problem at work, let's just say you need to send a difficult email, or you might need to resolve a query on a spreadsheet, we can analyse that to work out how best to do it. When it comes to dealing with emotions, that isn't always the best, calmest ways. And so mindfulness invites us, some of the practices we do, to come back to our body, to feel the wisdom that comes up from our bodies, and how by listening to our bodies, it can stop some of those automated responses and some of those patterns where we just analyse and actually don't ever get to resolve the emotional problem properly. A key part of mindfulness is accepting how things are in the here and now. Many of us had to accept that actually we couldn't be in schools, that schooling was going to have to take place online, and that actually, rather than keep battling and saying, oh, but it's such a shame we can't be in school, mindfulness says, actually, it's easier. We take the pressure off ourselves if we accept how things are right now and accept that we need to move more of our learning online, and that's going to happen on kitchen worktops or in coffee shops and whatever. And by doing that, we move away from that resistance that we can build up, and to say, it's okay to be here right now and accept that things are going to be different. They're not going to be like this forever, but at this moment in time, this is how things are, and how best can we accept the situation and be able to be okay with it for the here and now. Very often in mindfulness, when our thoughts appear, we can see that our thoughts, we see our thoughts as solid and real. And we give our students, when they come to class, we give them a little scenario. And I get them to imagine that they're walking down the street, and on the other side of their street, they see their friend. They wave at their friend, but their friend carries on walking. Then I ask them to pause for a moment and just say, what thoughts came into your head? What emotions arose? What went on in your body? And people can come up with all manner of stories that were completely untrue. We don't know whether the friend actually might simply not have noticed you. But our mind rushes in to tell us a story, and sometimes that story can be false. Sometimes that story can be quite anxious, and it can be quite stress-inducing. When we learn to step back from our mental events and go, that's just something that's going on in my mind at the moment, and that's my own thought process, that's my own perception. That might not be how the other person sees it. That might not be how it is in the outside world. That allows us to step back and to go, perhaps that isn't true. I don't know, but I'm okay to just stand back and see it as a mental event rather than it being objective reality. So that's another way in which we can step back and move from doing mode into being mode, being okay with just what's going on right now without putting in a story that might be false and incorrect. Sometimes we encounter, as many of us have done during this very difficult period, difficult emotions. We may have encountered really quite difficult situations with friends and family. People we know may have been ill or may have passed away. Or we may be working with children who are suffering a lot from anxiety and stress. Very often, our automatic reaction to these things is we want to avoid them. We want to avoid feeling difficult emotions. But mindfulness gives us an invitation to approach it in a different way. It says, how can I sit and be okay here and now with that emotion, to recognize that emotion, to sense and to feel it where it is in my body, but not to let it pull in all these automatic thoughts that might go, I'm down, things are bad, oh no, am I ever going to get out of this situation? So by standing back and just sitting with the emotion and feeling where they may be resonating in our body, allows us just to go, it's okay to be here now. It's okay to be here in this moment. It's natural that I'm going to feel a bit of stress and anxiety and sadness, that if I've lost a loved one, or sadness if a family member may be in hospital. And that's okay. And that all things will pass with time and things will be okay. But at the moment, it's okay to recognize where things are at. And that helps again take off some of the pressure that very often we want to run away and avoid those difficult emotions. And we do that, and we tend to do that with live sessions with our students, because obviously it can be quite emotive when we get to that point in the course. And then at the end of towards the end of the course, we say the importance of actually looking at our lives and just taking a bit of a step back to see what are all the things we do on a daily or weekly basis, that some of the things we have to do because they're necessary for our lives, but are we doing the things that really nourish us, the things that make us still feel good? And in a situation like coronavirus, in this pandemic, we've probably been so focused in on trying to get on and survive and do the right thing for ourselves or our pupils, we might sometimes forget, what are we doing to look after ourselves? And so ask yourself, what are the things that you enjoy doing that nourish you? Might that be photography? Might it be having some time to sit on your sofa and read a book and have a coffee? Maybe it might be having fun with your children and watching them paint. Well, I always laugh with this one and say, making sure after you've put something to cover the carpet before you let your children with the paints on them. So what are the things that you do? And are you still doing the things that you need to do to keep you feeling okay? Because when you're in a position as a parent, as a teacher, as a carer, so much of your life is given to other people that if you don't look after yourself, you're not going to be able to look after them. And that's what we were saying about the oxygen mask mentality. And when Lisa and I run the course, we like doing this at the end because it really helps people look at their lives and say, what can I take forwards to look after myself? And some of that is that people want to do the daily mindfulness practice, that they're going to do that daily practice to help keep them focused and together. And for other people, it's going to be maybe they're going to do more everyday mindfulness, going out and doing photography, listening to music, playing an instrument. All of those things are equally part of mindfulness, as is the formal practice. Lisa, anything to say on that? Because I think next up, we're going to be doing our practice together.
Yeah, I know. I think you've covered everything. I'm eager to get onto the practice, actually, to give people a chance to experience and exactly what mindfulness is all about in practice for real.
Brilliant. Okay. What I was thinking was, do we want to just have a moment before we do the practice to see if there's any questions that have come up about any of the things we've covered before we go into the practice, and then we can have some more questions after the practice. If you've got any questions, if you want to put them into the chat functionality, that would be really, really useful. If there's anything now, let's have a look and see what's going on there.
Yeah, so I've had a couple of things in about teachers, which I think we can come to at the end, about including MBCT in educational content, which I think you can talk to a bit, Ashley, at the end. Yes, and we always feel like we need more than an hour for this session. So that's a very good comment, but no other questions.
Okay, that's fine. I did see someone was raising their hand quite a few times, but you know, what we are looking to give here is very much an overview. So yes, ideally we would probably have 2 hours, but we wanted to give you an understanding of what mindfulness is, talk about the psychology and neuroscience underpinning it, and give you some examples of some of the things you can do in your everyday lives to become more mindful. And now we are going to invite you to do a practice. So we want you to really enter into the spirit of this and do this practice as best you can, because it's when we do this, I think it best helps people understand what mindfulness is. So, okay, thank you for the questions so far. So let me just, oh, whoops, I've just got to, so quick recap of the benefits. So what we're seeing with mindfulness practice, doing a mindfulness course, is that it reduces down stress, rumination, but worrying, that kind of regurgitating things in the mind, and emotional reactivity. And what goes up is working memory, cognitive flexibility, self-awareness, ethical behavior, relationship satisfaction, and well-being. So maybe have a moment before we go into the practice to think some of the examples we talked about there. What can you take going forward into your everyday life? What can you do? Some simple everyday things and ways that you can become a bit more mindful. For me, one of the key ways was just enjoying my relationship with my food. Very often, I'm quite a fast eater, and for me, it was just like, it was quick fuel to go in and get on with something. What I'd learned to change was actually to really savor creating my lunches, eating them, and enjoying all the taste of it. I think one of the things that I've seen when I've been practicing mindfulness with teachers is to see how they, with their own anxiety, if you go into a classroom as a teacher and you're feeling very anxious and stressed, whether that be online or whether that be in a physical classroom, your class can pick up on that too. So by you being conscious and having that moment, those mindful moments, those times when you practice everyday mindfulness, as well as the simple technique we're going to just do now, that allows you to be calmer, and therefore you to model that calmness to your pupils. and your pupils pick up on that too. So it's an upward cycle, it's a virtuous cycle. It's great for you, and it's going to be great for your students as well. So when we practice mindfulness, we are better able to manage our own stress, our own worry. We can see it, we can go, oh, what's going on right now? Why don't I have a moment to pause to feel where I'm feeling the stress in my body and maybe breathe into it. It can help us increase our performance and productivity, because we're better able to manage what's going on and manage our focus and attention. Work out what's going on and know that actually we're being distracted by something difficult and coming back. And when we can better manage our performance and productivity, we can have a better work-life balance and therefore a better sense of well-being. I'm conscious that some people have raised their hands. If you can put your questions in the chat after we've done the practice, that'd be brilliant. Okay, so just use the chat functionality to put any questions you've got, and we can answer them after we've done our practice now. So I'm going to ask you now, please, to refrain from asking any other questions and to allow yourself to be fully present in the moment. I'm going to ask you in a minute to close your eyes, but before I do that, just some simple instructions about this practice. This is a very basic practice. When I go for my CPD sessions at the Oxford Mindfulness Centre down the road here, we have great mindfulness teachers from across the world that come to run masterclasses. And before we do some of the sessions, we always make sure that we ourselves are obviously being mindful. And this was a very simple practice, feet, seat and hands, and you'll see why it does what it says on the tin, to ground us and anchor us in the present moment. It's a very short practice, but one that I think embodies how much of mindfulness practice is actually about coming back to our bodies. So I'm going to ask you now to please make sure that you are ideally sitting upright in your chair. So you might want to move your chair away from your computer. Ideally, hopefully you're sitting in a hardback chair. If you're not, that's fine, but you want to have your feet, your knees and your hips all at right angles. And in a moment, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And then I'm just going to guide you through this practice. So if you're okay now to close your eyes, I will do the same too. Just become aware now of the room that you're sat in. Maybe become aware of any other noises or anything going on around you. Just acknowledge them and give yourself permission that in a moment you're going to turn the focus, the attention inwards. We're going to turn the focus, the attention now to the feet. And if you want, if it helps you to bring the focus, the attention to the feet, you might just want to wiggle your toes. Just feel where your feet are on the floor right now. Maybe your feet are against the bare floor, maybe they're in socks, maybe they're in trainers or shoes. But just experience your feet wherever they are on the floor or in shoes or whatever, or on carpet. Just, if you like, wiggle them to help bring the focus, the attention into the feet right now, just to see what's going on in this part of the body. What sensations can you feel in this part of the body? Remembering that it's equally fine if there's no particular sensations appearing. Sometimes when we first do this practice with people, they almost can't feel their feet. Some people go, what's going on here? It's a bit strange, but that's just okay too. There's no right or wrongs. There's just keeping the focus, the attention in that part of the body. And if the mind wanders, just acknowledging that the mind had a tendency to wander off and bring it back to the focus, the attention here and now in the feet. And then with the next in-breath, shifting the focus of the attention now to where you're sitting, to feeling the seat beneath you. Your pelvis, in the thighs, in the buttock. And just feel where you are sitting right now. What sensations can you feel in this part of the body? The back of the legs, or even the lower back too. Just becoming aware of what sensations may be in this part of the body. Remembering that if there's no particular sensations, that's fine too. And if the mind wanders onto something else, that's absolutely fine. allowing the mind to gently come back to the focus of the attention here and now, where you are sitting. Any sensations appearing in that part of the body that's in contact with the seat that you're in right now. And then finally, moving the focus of the attention with the next in-breath into the hands. Very often when I'm doing this practice, I let my hands rest on my knees, but they might be on your lap too, wherever feels comfortable for you now. And again, if it helps to move the focus of the attention into the hands, you can do that by maybe moving your fingers or your hands around. Maybe feeling any sensations where the hands are in contact with your body, whether it be on the knees or the lap. Seeing what sensations there are in this part of the body. And if the mind wanders, that's absolutely okay. Gently escorting the mind back to be fully present in this part of the body, in the hands, and to be fully present in this moment here and now. Letting go of whatever may have happened in the past and letting go of whatever may be coming in the future. And just being here in this present moment right now. And equally, if there's no particular sensations in the hand, that's okay too. This practice is designed just to help you be in the present moment and to shift the focus of the attention to consciously choose where the focus of the attention is being placed. Starting in the feet, then moving to where we've been sitting, and then moving to our hands. Coming back to our bodies, feeling what bodily sensations may arise. A big part of mindfulness is about returning to our body, feeling what sensations may be going on, because very often this is a great place to feel our emotions arising and then dissipating. As we come back to our body, very often we can stop the automatic thoughts that may whirl in when we start to get a bit agitated. By coming back to our body and just doing simple practice like feet, seat and hands allows us to ground us and anchor us in the present moment. And just now finishing with a brief moment of silence, just allowing you to be fully aware of where you're sitting right now. Allowing yourself to seat upright as if a small string or something was almost pulling your head slightly upright, so your spine is nice and straight. And just allowing yourself to be fully present in your body, fully present in this moment. Remembering that mindfulness techniques like this can help ground us and anchor us in the present moment, to help keep us calm whenever difficult situations may arise, but equally to help ground us and anchor us in the present moment at regular points in our day. And then gradually opening our eyes as we come back to awareness of the room that we're in. Thank you for doing that. What we normally do after a practice is we have a little bit of inquiry. So I'm just going to do this with Lisa to start off with. So Lisa, if you just want to tell us about what went on for you in that practice, were you able to fully experience in each of those different parts of your body any sensations arising? Was there much mind wandering? What else was going on? And then after Lisa's done that, you might want to put into the chat function what was going on for you. So please use the chat function to maybe feed back to us what was going on for you. Were you able to focus on these three areas? Was there much mind wandering? How did you find the practice? Is this something you had done before? Please don't raise your hands. We just want you to put questions, just comments into the chat functionality. Thank you. Lisa.
Yes, I was able to focus on each of the parts of the body as you stepped us through the practice. But I did notice that
Well, your sound's cut out a little bit, Lisa. Did your I think you said?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I think it's just your internet connection is cuts in and out a little bit.
Okay, so I was able to focus, but I did notice that my mind was wandering. I also noticed that my feet feel really cold, and I hadn't noticed that before, and I think I'm going to have to go and put another pair of socks on. It's got cold, but it just shows you don't always tune into your body. And I think this kind of practice is really helpful, because especially as we're all sitting at home at the kitchen table or our desks, and you forget to move about. So using this kind of practice, as well as being able to focus on what's going on in the mind, it is useful to tune into the body as well, to make sure that we're comfortable and what have you. So no, but I did find it very calming, and as I always do when I do a mindfulness practice, or most of the time, I do find it's quite a peaceful experience. But yes, my mind was wandering. I was distracted a bit.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. And thank you, Lisa. And of course, even us as mindfulness teachers, our minds are going to wander. So look, what I want to do is, I'm seeing lots of good questions come up and we can answer them. Just before we get into general questions, it'd just be good to have any feedback about how you found the practice. Before we get into general things about how we as teachers can use this when we're very busy, any specific feedback on the practice? What did you get from the practice? Were you able to enter in and give it a go? I'm having a look. If you can find... Taryn, found a good exercise. Notice I'm quite tired. Sometimes when we do this, we can see that actually we start to become more attuned to our body. We can see what's going on there. Managed to focus, realize my feet were warm. So yes, you get a relaxation too. I feel the pressure where I'm sitting, calming on and off. Thank you very much. Please do put into the chat. There's no right and wrongs, by the way. There just is your experience. And some people... Lauren, it was great that there was less mind wandering for you, but even for us mindfulness teachers. And Joyce, thank you. The churning mind slowed down. This is often what a lot of people see. And yeah, I can see someone saying about my mind wandered off to sounds around the room. Completely normal, completely normal. Every time our mind goes off, we gently invite it back. We gently invite it back. And that is the journey of mindfulness. Just as every time I lift that dumbbell to move, to help build my bicep, it might be a bit painful, but by doing that, I'm building the muscle. Every time your mind wanders and you bring it back, it's helping you rewire your brain to work in calmer, wiser ways. So absolutely normal. And if your mind drifted off or you're feeling a bit tired, that's fine, especially because for some of you, it's at the end of the school day. Some of you, it's going into your evening. So you're going to feel a bit tired and sleepy.
And I think that there's a few comments about mind wandering. And I think it take you back to the beginning of the session where Ashley was giving the definition of mindfulness and about how it's non-judgmental. And it's really interesting to notice that we'll judge our minds for wandering. You know, if you feel that something's gone wrong, the mind's wandered, I had to bring it back. Noticing that your mind has wandered off from where you intended it to be is fantastic. The fact that you've noticed it and that you are able to bring it back. So it's not a failing, but it's very interesting to see how we judge ourselves. I've got it wrong. My mind was wandering far too much. You know, it's not the case in mindfulness. It's something to congratulate yourself for, that you've recognized that your mind has wandered, and then you are able to deliberately bring it back to the present moment.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're getting a lot of people saying about calming. And of course, we talked about that being a great side effect of it. And it's all about choosing, when you learn mindfulness, what is the right point in the day that you want to practice it? Because like we're saying, some of you, it's later on in your day. Here in the UK, we're just coming up to nearly 2 o'clock. I think some of you, it's probably coming up to near 6 o'clock. And so at the end of the day, you can suddenly, your body will go, I'm really tired. So thank you for all that feedback. I wanted to cover off some of the questions that people were asking around, where do we get the time to enjoy things when we've got to do so much preparation for teaching and online teaching? You know, and look, I understand this. I've been a school teacher. I get this and understand it. What's really important is in mindfulness to say, the busier we are, often what happens, people will say, how can I fit in mindfulness on top of it? What we've learned is the busier we are, the more we need to fit in mindfulness, because actually it can help stop the busyness, because that investment of 5 or 10 minutes a day doing simple mindfulness practice can help calm us, can help focus us, and can help us work in efficient and calmer manner. And it can also help us to say, I've done enough, I've done as much as I can do today. And if I carry on like this, I might burn out. So it gives us that invitation to say, if I can do this at regular points in my day, if I can learn mindfulness techniques, then it can allow me to actually have a bit of my life back. It can help me to keep calm and to focus and to find a time when to say, actually, I need to stop doing my preparation now, and I need to have some time for me, because you get this one glorious life, and what we want to do is to be our best in it as we can and to be okay with it even when we're going through difficulty. So by constantly doing that, it allows us to actually better organize our minds and better organize our days that actually might make us more effective. So I was asking about the minimum time of mindfulness practice. I think, Lisa, you've read some studies on this, but I think what some of the studies are showing that 10 minutes a day can be enough, can't it, to rewire the mind? Is that correct?
Yeah, there are lots of studies on what's called small dose mindfulness or low dose mindfulness. There is so many individual differences all across the field of psychology that everyone's going to be different, but broadly speaking, anything you do is going to help, whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's 15, 20 minutes, whether it's an hour. So I think getting to a routine and see you'll know what is benefiting you. You'll kind of know it's enough. So trust yourself. But yeah, I would aim for about 10 minutes a day. I think as a beginner, it's important to do between 10 and 15 minutes if you can, because you are establishing that routine. And obviously people want to try and give yourself the opportunity to realize those benefits. So yeah, but in terms of the science, that the jury's out still on that. So because we're all different, but yeah.
Thank you. I'm conscious we're almost up to the hour. So I think that's probably as many questions as we can take. I just wanted to share with you one thing that I did last year. I was invited to run a teacher training program at the Italian Ministry of Education, which was a real honor and privilege. I worked with 65 teaching staff over a 4-week period, and Lisa helped me run the academic study of that, which showed really good results not too dissimilar from the ones we showed earlier. And on the back of that, I have created an online mindfulness course. It's a 4-week self-study course, and into that I have put all of I've created some PDFs of all the main teaching points in the background. There are slide decks, there are videos, and then there are audio files. So we're just launching it in the UK. But because it's written by me and I'm Pearson staff, we can sell it globally. So through our sales team and channels, in due course, we will make that available. So for those of you who are asking about, what resources are available, and this is a mindfulness course for teachers. It's for your own well-being, and it's a self-study course. It's on our Active Learn platform, and schools purchase a subscription to it, and it gives them access to it for a whole year, so that teachers can stagger it at different times when they want to do it. So I thought I'd just share that with you, that we have just published that in the UK. It's also selling in Italy, but we'll be able to sell it internationally. So we'll be promoting that through our Pearson sales channels in due course. So I just want to say a massive thank you to all of you for coming with an open mind. And I'm hoping that this has given you a bit of a bit of a kind of an insight to how it all works. Just finally, there's one last question. Can mindfulness practice be carried out in a group? Yes. Most of mindfulness classes are actually done in groups. The groups that Lisa and I have taught are mainly about 15 to 20 people. But what we've been talking about here is obviously just online, and this is an online self-study course. So very much at the moment, what we've done, this is for individuals, but groups. And if you find local providers, very much it's done in small groups. So I hope that this has given you a real insight into what mindfulness is. I hope it's answered some of your questions. I know it's only an hour, so we couldn't do everything right in depth. But and thank you for the lovely feedback. I hope it's helped you just learn some basic techniques about how mindfulness can help you as teachers with all the brilliant work that you do. So I'm going to hand back now to our Pearson. So I don't know, Camilla or Lindue, whether you're going to close, or Dr. Abdullah, I don't know if you want to say any final word.
There we go.
Thank you, Camilla. It's really wonderful. The all information you shared in the small time that you made participants practice. I also did it, and I also feel really different. When concentrating on the leg only, I feel it's only my leg I have, no other worries. I just feel the leg. And also when I concentrate where I'm sitting, only felt that. I'm sure that worked very well. And especially if somebody has gone through the entire course and learn everything, definitely this will really help for the mental well-being and maintaining good emotional status. I can say we can just experience just the tip of the eyes The rest, we have to go deep and get experience, and then it will be really helpful to keep our own mental well-being and emotional stability. Thank you, Ashley, for and Lisa, for a wonderful experience that you have shared. I'm sure this will really be helpful for the teachers and whoever presented in the webinar. I feel really blessed to be in part of this, and listening to you personally, that helps me as well. So in future, even if we keep on practicing this, I'm sure that will be helpful in this stressful time. Thank you once again. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rashid. Lindiwe, any last notes?
I think from my side is just to say thank you for everyone that attended, and the video will be shared with everyone, and look out for more webinars that we will be inviting you to. So I think once we've got all your email addresses, we'll be sharing all that information with you in further time. Thank you.
Thank you again. It's been lovely to work with you all, and feel free, you know, Lindiwe and Camilla and Dr. Rashid, you know, if there's any more feedback or people are interested in anything more, please do get in touch through your relevant local salespeople. Absolutely. Thank you so much, and I wish you all the best, and hope that this might be the start of your own mindfulness journey if you're not already practicing it.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you,
everyone. Thank you. Goodbye. Goodbye.